Welcome to the No Quit Living podcast. Our primary objective is to motivate and inspire our listeners to never quit. The reality of life is simple. We all fall. We all fail. At times, we get knocked down. The question is, do we get back up? Are we stronger? Are we better prepared to attain the maximum of our potential? Thank you for joining our No Quit tribe. As you go for your greatness today, never quit. And remember, we rise by lifting others up. Welcome to episode number 418 of the No Quit Living podcast. I'm your host, Christopher J. Worth, and today's theme of the day is hero. Our quote of the day comes to us from Christopher Reeve. A hero is an ordinary person who finds the strength to persevere and endure in spite of overwhelming obstacles. Are you looking to become more organized, disciplined, and focused with both your personal and professional life? If so, we suggest you head on over to theclearplanner.com and check out our Clear Planner. Think calendar, journal, planner, and goal and habit tracker all in one. Take a look by heading on over to theclearplanner.com. I had a great time speaking with today's guest. Brian Johnson delivers a course on how to become a better version of yourself. His new book, Areté, is absolutely fantastic, and I highly recommend it. Get ready to take some notes as Brian provides a ton of value. I know you will enjoy today's episode. Brian, I'd like to welcome you to the No Quit Living podcast.
Christopher, thrilled to be here.
Appreciate it. I ask everybody the same first question. I know the answer, but I'm still going to ask you, are you ready to positively impact at least one person today?
It's yes is the short answer. The longer answer is that's exactly how I start every one of these chats in my mind is one person, one idea, hopefully every person with one idea. So yeah, let's go.
The theme of our podcast, No Quit Living, is to motivate and inspire our listeners to never give up or quit on themselves. And I'm curious if you have a no quit story yourself, or perhaps a challenging time where you could have given up or given in, but you didn't.
Well, we could have a very long conversation about the number of times I wanted to quit and stayed in there. But, what arose for me as you said that, asked the question, and as we, talked before we came on about our mutual friends, Brian Kane and Sean Casey, just to go sports with it. 25 years ago, I was running my first business, 1999, kind of the height of the dot-com boom. I'm running a sports technology company. I'm 25 years old. We had won a business plan competition at UCLA, raised $5 million. We hired the CEO of Adidas to replace me, right when the market crashed. And I remember him vividly telling me he'd fly in from Portland, right? And I'd pick him up from LAX. We'd take him to the most ridiculous offices in Westwood, right by UCLA. We got a ping pong table boardroom. I've got the dartboard in my office, the full deal, right? But the market crashed in 2000, right after we hired him. And he said, look, it's easier to start strong. It's an entirely different thing to finish strong. And so going through that process, but that wisdom it was tattooed in my consciousness, of, all right, it's easy to start out, all fired up, but what do you do when life hits you? So that's been kind of my ethos. Every time I get hit is, easy to start strong. You got to finish strong. And then briefly to conclude that, in ancient Sanskrit, they had a word for that. They had a word for the guys and gals that would start out strong with trumpets of fanfare, right? You're all fired up. You set your New Year's resolutions. You start a new business or whatever, and you go for it. And then the moment it gets hard, you tiptoe out the back door and pretend like you never made any commitments, They called that person a hero in the beginning. The Sanskrit word is arambashura. So it gives me goosebumps when I share that, But that idea is such a normal part of the human experience that they named it 2,000 years ago. So no quit, finish strong.
I love that. And going back to two people you mentioned, Brian Kane and Sean Casey, I've challenged Brian Kane on something he says all the time. It's the start that stops most people. And when he was on, I think the second time or the third time, I forget, on our podcast, I challenged him on that because I said to him, Brian, I think a lot of people can start things strong, excited, whether it's a diet, it's something new, a goal, a resolution. But I love how you talked about that, a hero in the beginning. And Brian hit me back with, you have to restart every day. And I love how he touches on some of those things, because at the end of the day, the next day starts. And
Yep.
similar to what you said. So I think it's one of those fun things. It's people talk about, is it the start? Is it the continuance? Is it starting over every day? But I think so many people, and as the time we're recording this, Thanksgiving's right around the corner and holidays, this is the time when most people start setting those New Year's resolutions. And I don't need to tell you, but the statistics of how many people give up within the first and then second week,
Yep.
It's astonishing.
Dude, so then we like to say New Year's resolutions are great, but it's all about New Day's resolutions. So the app we built with Heroic, you literally recommit every single morning. You set your intention, your attention follows, your behavior follows. And my thing is, it's day one. It's day one, all in, let's go. And it's always day one. And then it's always the moment. You can't even seize a day. Carpe diem's a nice idea, but the only thing you can seize is this moment, carpe punctum. So yeah, moment to moment to moment, show up, close the gap, be your best self. Today's the day. And yes, it's hard to start. Yes, it's hard to keep going. Yes, it's hard to finish strong. Like, perfect. Show up, know what you want, know the price you need to pay, and get back to work paying it.
Yeah, I don't think there's any easy day per se. Maybe when you're finishing a race or something that lasts, 10 yards when you've finished everything else. But I think to your point, it's this day, this moment, this game, this practice.
I got some buddies that are, I really admire, some of elite Navy SEALs, right? We're blessed to serve the Special Forces community in different ways, right? But they like to say the only easy day was yesterday. It's like, all right, let's go. Right after a tough day, you're like, perfect. That was the easy day. What do we got today,
But that's why, I know you know this, the idea of you don't rise to the level of your competition, you fall to the level of your training. And that's why SEALs and military people and high achieving athletes always train to that high level, because you don't typically rise to the occasion of, if you're an average athlete, you don't all of a sudden usually have a game where you just play out of your mind. Once in a blue moon, someone will play above their ability, but I would say 9 out of 10 times it's spot on. It's you fall or rise to the level of your training, and it's the same concept of the Navy SEALs. Is the only easy day was yesterday.
So let's get it.
I have your new book for our listeners who are on audio, Areté, Activate Your Heroic Potential. I absolutely love this book, and as I said to you offline, I saw both Sean Casey and Brian Kane post something within the last 2 weeks about the book, and those two guys, when they share anything, it automatically jumps up to my list. I ordered the book. I've gone through it. Have to ask you a pretty transparent question, 2 parts to it. What led you to actually writing the book, and then how long did it take you to write it?
Yeah, I'll answer it in the other order. It took me about 25 years to write it. Literally, I waited a long time. I wanted to have something worth saying. So it's an integration of what I've been studying. Literally, I've spent half of the last 25 years as a founder CEO, built and sold a couple of social platforms and did some other things. And the other half, reading, writing, thinking, and teaching. We've trained 10,000 coaches from 100 countries around the world. Sean Casey's been through that. Kanner's been a big part of our community for a long time. But yeah, this book is, it's been a long time in the making. I wrote it because I wanted to share the wisdom. Same thing that we started our chat with, one person, one idea, can we change your life? And hopefully at least one idea for every single person that reads it. There are 451 micro chapters, potentially life-changing ideas. It takes 451 degrees to ignite a fire. So that's the idea. Activation energy. One thing becomes another thing at activation energy points. It's a chemistry idea. If you want to boil water, nothing happens at 200 degrees, 210, 211. You need to hit 212 degrees. So you need to show up with an intensity to life. You got to know what you want. You got to know the price you need to pay, and you need to get busy paying it, as we've been discussing. But 451 micro chapters, 1,000 pages, and I'm really excited about it. I'm proud of it, and the response has been wonderful, and just excited to get it out there, and hoping that we can meet people where they're at, and give them an idea that can take them to the next level.
I'm so glad you described it that way, because I don't think I could ever do justice to what you just said. But going back to the first thing you said when I asked you how long it took you to write it, I laughed because you said 25 years, and it immediately made me think of some of the social media memes or posts I've seen over the last few years when people talk about overnight success, and then they followed up with that it took them 10 years or 15 years or 20 years to become an overnight success. And I love that you prefaced it that way, because I think in today's day and age, especially with social media, people talk about instant this, instant that. And I won't put anybody on the spot, but there are so many things on social media, I'm sure you've seen them, that you'll become a best-selling author in 30 days. And not that you couldn't do it in some way, shape, or form, but I just have a hard time accepting some of these courses that put forth this, I guess, salesmanship of become a best-selling author, in 2 minutes. You'll spend five days doing this, and then you're great. I love how you touched on 25 years.
Yeah, I appreciate that, man. I mean, it's all time and reps, and just being worthy of it. And again, without being mean-spirited about it, I think there's often an inverse correlation between one's wisdom and their reach these days. Because the people that are putting so much energy and effort into the marketing and the hype and the sales haven't, by definition, had enough time to spend on the wisdom to be worthy of actually having that impact and reach. And you look at some of the societal challenges we have, and I would offer that is just another indicator of some things that need some work. So that doesn't mean that I have something worth saying, but I tried to work hard to be worthy of being in a position to be in dialogue with you. I've worked hard to try to understand what these great teachers across all ancient wisdom and faith traditions had to say, what modern science has to say, and all the mental toughness guys we love, and then try to bring it together into a coherent, practical, grounded, inspiring, but grounded, integrated philosophy that people can apply to their modern lives. And it's a longer chat, but that's the basic idea. And every day, man, it's exactly what we're talking about. Just show up and do the work and do what you can to serve that one person.
I'd love to dissect something you said earlier in that last answer when it comes to people that are putting out message of marketing and advertising. You can't do everything all at once. I immediately thought about the idea of multitasking, and I have a presentation I do in the professional world asking people about multitasking and how many people think they're good at, and like 80% of the audience always puts their hands up. And then I share a couple stories and facts, and about 79% put their hands down and they realize that you can't. But it leads me back to your point that I'd love to get your quick perspective on, the sense of you can be great at marketing and advertising and doing those type of things, but I don't think it's possible to then also be great at the writing part, the teaching part, the coaching part, the gathering the information. And I think the best teams or companies, organizations that I've had the opportunity to work with or observe, they have those people that specialize in one area. And I think to your point about the wisdom out there is you can't be a jack of all trades, master of none.
Yeah, then you got to decide. I mean, it's funny because one guy that probably breaks that rule, Ryan Holiday, is an extraordinary writer and an extraordinary marketer, but yet we all have the teams behind the team. I do what I do with the support of a lot of people that allow me to do what I do and have allowed me to do it for years. But yeah, I think you need to decide what you want to be the best in the world at. What you absolutely love to do, what you think you can be truly great at, perhaps among the best in the world, and what you think the world needs. And for me, it's been that. It's been the ancient wisdom, modern science, practical tools. How do I help someone move from, again, we work with Kaner and Sean and some elite athletes and coaches and military officers and executives and people who don't want to get out of bed tomorrow morning. And I know what that feels like too, by the way. That's the ultimate no-quit story for me, is I wanted to end my life 25 years ago. And for the grace of whatever it was and constellation of things, moved through that phase. But humbled by that, my father struggled with alcohol. His father struggled with alcohol, ended his own life. So ultimately, my mission in life is to help it's fun to help the people that are just crushing, and to bring out the best in them. That's important because they're the leaders that are going to inspire the next wave of people. But I'm also really, really committed to helping people who don't have a sense of purpose and don't know if they want to go another day. And I can tell them, I know what it feels like to feel that. I know what it feels like to feel pretty good and sustainably, where I am. Still highs and lows, obviously, we're all human. And I know what I did to go from there to here. But just as a frame, dude, that's the ultimate no quit story that I'm most proud of, and that I'm most committed to helping people get. But then meeting them wherever they're at, and preserving the humility, of how hard it is to live a good life. And to your point, we're told to play the wrong game, which is objective one in the book, is you got to know the ultimate game. Almost all of us have been seduced to play let's go after the extrinsic fame, wealth, and hotness. And that's dangerous enough, but then we're told it should be easy, and you should get it like that. And if you experience any challenges in the process, something's inherently wrong with you, and you just need to buy more of my stuff, whether it's more alcohol or more junk food or more self-development stuff, So we got to step back and look at it and go, all right, but what's the real game of life, And the science is unequivocal, and ancient wisdom is unequivocal. Be your best self in service to something bigger than yourself. And it's supposed to be hard. This story we've been told that it's supposed to be easy is why most people quit. Most people quit because the moment they get hit, they're like, oh, shoot, something must be wrong with me because it's hard. No, dude, that's the sign you're doing it right. You're supposed to battle dragons, not sidestep lizards. And when we really get that, we know that the hero's journey is full of challenges. Then we step up and we say, perfect, this is what I trained for. Let me use that challenge as fuel for my growth, and our life changes. We've got some stuff we can talk about how to operationalize that, but I think that's also a really important frame that I know you get, but that I think needs to be made more obvious to more people.
I love that, and I'm going to butcher the idea, but I remember many years ago, Grant Cardone was talking about that exact thing. When you get opposition or obstacles or people start knocking you in social media, it's because you are making progression and you are doing things the right way. And it's the opposite of what people put out there, I think, on social media. Everything's great and everything's wonderful. And the concept, but everybody posts their highlight reels on social media. And I personally love the stories and the people that actually take it the other side, where they say, hey, here's where I was at my lowest, or here's where my business was almost gone, or here's where my relationship or friendship and then here's how I got out of it. And not that I don't want to see and watch and understand those great stories, but to me, it's more along the lines of how do you learn, how do you adapt, and when you get hit in life, it's not a question of if, because we all get hit in life. The question is, how do you respond versus react? And then what was the skill or the habit or the routine that allowed you to go from here to here?
Let's go there. And fully aligned, of course, of sharing our challenges. It's fixed mindset versus growth mindset. Everybody that's putting it up, they're photoshopped. Hey, everything's perfect. Nothing ever goes wrong. Like, that's the dangerous side of this whole process, obviously. But the biggest distinction I made in my life, I got the clarity on the distinction from my coach, Phil Stutz. So Phil is in a documentary with Jonah Hill called Stutz on Netflix. Highly recommend it. And I've framed it up now as anti-fragile confidence, but Phil calls it emotional stamina. So when life hits us, what do? And if you want emotional stamina or anti-fragile confidence, the ability to get stronger when you face challenges, then the question is, when you get hit, what do? Do you spiral out and go off the rails and do all this stuff you shouldn't be doing? Or when you get hit, do you double down in your protocol? And he taught me this years ago, that the worse you feel, the more committed you need to be to your protocol. That's the ultimate weapon that I have, and how I just don't quit. Not only do I not quit, I literally use those obstacles to get stronger. Because every time I get hit, I go deeper into my protocol. Your protocol is who you are when you're at your best. So you got to know who you are when you're at your best, and you got to make your prior best your new baseline. right? And you gotta, again, we with everything I do in the book, in the app, with our coach program, we take an extensive look at you at your best, identifying who you are and your energy, your work, and your love. And then I'm ruthless about it. Get clarity on it, and then go all in, especially when you don't feel like it. And if when you get hit by life and you used to break, instead you can respond with even more discipline and all-inness. You go from being fragile way past being resilient to being anti-fragile. The opposite of fragile is you get stronger the more you get pushed around. The only way to do that is if you execute your protocol when you're at your most stressed, most pushed moments. And it's as close to invincibility as we're ever going to get. Longer chat, but that's the top level frame of what I personally do. And then you literally genuinely get excited, like, oh, there it is again. Epictetus says, when you get hit by challenges, imagine that I call them the heroic gods. He says, the stoic gods, if you will, are giving you a young Olympic wrestler to train you, to make sure that you're in the best peak shape that you can be in. That's what your challenges are. So you need to quit resisting them, quit rejecting them, quit telling yourself something's wrong, and get to work, again, using those challenges to get stronger.
It's so interesting to listen to the way you describe things, because I think it's your approach using different words, using some different ideas, but it's the same common idea and concept. And I don't want to simplify it, but to me, it's becoming the best version of yourself. And when you said make your best your new baseline, that just hit me. I think that's so powerful, because I think so many people hit that best or the high, and that becomes their high or their best almost moving forward. We had our best month in June. It's great. And then in July and August, their best month was still in June, as opposed to saying, okay, it's not going to be easy. It's not going to be simple, nor is it going to happen automatically where June becomes the high, then July, then August. You have to work on it. And you use the word protocol. Wanted to maybe challenge you on this. What's a different word that you could use besides protocol? Would that be process, or?
I'm a big fan of protocol, dude. So I want to know, and the way we define protocol, process is how you execute your protocol. But you got to know, and you want to be process oriented, not outcome oriented, obviously, and work your process, work your protocol. I mean, they're close to synonymous in my mind. Protocol, I have a relationship with, because it feels like it's a series of things that you do when you're at your best. And one of the ways I frame it up is a checklist. So if you were going to fly somewhere, you would never get on the plane if the pilot didn't run through a checklist. And you should know that you shouldn't have a surgery performed on you unless the surgical team had a checklist. Not all do. Very basic things. If, hi, my name is, we're going to operate on this person on this side of the body, this organ, we're going to do this. Very basic things. Those surgical teams that have checklists kill 40%, 47% less people than those who don't have a simple checklist. So you want to have a checklist. You want to have a protocol. What simple things do you do when you're at your best? But you got to know what that is. That you can't work a protocol that you don't know, you haven't defined. So again, we break it down into three things: energy, work, and love. But the simplest way that I frame it up, and by the way, Sean, Brendan Geyer, some other really high-performing athletes, the thing they love the most is how I help them in their love. Because energy and work for really ambitious guys in particular, that's pretty easy. I'm not thinking a lot about my energy. I got a lot of challenges in work, but whatever, I'm supposed to. I'm trying to do heroic things. I tattooed my body with heroic, like, well, let's go. It's the love that's the most challenging for me. Being a great husband, being a great father, and all the other things, But anyway, the way that I help people get clarity on their protocol is bust out a single piece of paper, draw a line down the middle. On the upper left, put do. On the upper right, put don't. Then think back to when you were at your best, whether it was a day, a week, a month, a year, or a decade. What were you doing and what were you not doing? And then think about the one thing that you did when you were at your best that you're not currently doing, that if you did it would most change your life. Then think about the thing you're currently doing, whether it's binge eating, drinking, watching, or whatever else, that you didn't do when you're at your best. and decide that you're going to stop doing that. And then know that your fastest way to change your life is to stop doing the kryptonites. Anything that's leaking your energy and just destroying your confidence in yourself, that's the fastest way to change your life. Then the process is how you execute the protocol, is kind of my slight distinction on that. But I think whatever we call it, we need to know who we are and what we do when we're at our best. Then we need to do it, especially when we don't feel like it. I tell a story about Sean in the book when he was batting nearly 400. Right? Come the All-Star break, it was insane. He was just on fire, right? And then he went 0 for 12. And he calls up Harvey Dorfman, who's his coach at the time, who of course is the greatest coach of that era, all-time great. And he's telling Harvey, what's going on, right? And Harvey's like, all right, well, are you working your protocol? Are you working your process? And Sean's like, yeah, I'm doing this, I'm doing that, I'm ripping the ball, and this guy caught this. And Harvey's like, drops his F-bombs, he's like, what are you calling for me? What are you calling me for? Click, hangs up on him. Just keep on working your process, dude. Work your protocol. Just do that. Things will take care of themselves. Quit looking at the outcomes. But it's really hard to work your process, to work your protocol when the outcomes aren't there. Perfect. But the best among us know that's when you double down. That's not when you give up your gains and you start doing the silly things. That's when you tighten everything up. Get the margins working even closer. And again, there's something about that cultivates a deep level of confidence, which confidere, 2 Latin words, it means intense trust. And if you want true, grounded, anti-fragile confidence, you have to do what you say you will do. You have to be worthy of your own trust. And you can only do that by doing the things you know you should be doing, which, by the way, is why I named the book Areté. So Areté is the one-word answer Stoics would give you on how to live a good life. It means virtue or excellence, but it means basically working your protocol, doing what you know is best for you moment to moment to moment. If you're capable of doing this and you're actually doing this and there's a gap between who you could have been and who you're actually being, that's where regret, anxiety, disillusionment, doubt, etc. exists. When you close the gap, when you live with Areté, when you work your process, you execute the protocol, whatever you want to call it, moment to moment to moment in every aspect of your life, never perfectly, but more and more consistently, there's no room for the negative stuff. You feel a deep sense of joy, meaning, purpose, independent of the outcomes, because you know you're leaving it all on the court, you're doing what you're here to do, and those challenges are just fuel for your growth.
You answered like 4 of my questions all in that last.
You got me fired up there. Let's go.
So for our listeners, I have to just reiterate the exercise that Brian shared about piece of paper, do and don't. When you were at your best, what were you doing? What were you not doing? If you take nothing out of this podcast, which I think you'll take a ton, I would highly suggest that our listeners think about doing that exercise, whether that's personally, professionally, something that you're looking to improve, replicate, change. I think that was incredibly powerful. Have to ask you a fun question that I ask each guest that I'm actually really curious to get your answer. I know you know the famous Jim Rohn quote, you are the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with. If I could grant you dinner tonight with any 5 people, dead or alive, that you could level up with, who would you pick?
That's a great question. I thought you were going to say Jim Rohn. Jim and I Sean connected us. I'm like, but yeah, Jim Rohn, who's also awesome. There's kind of the personal family, that connection. My dad never met my kids, passed away before. I wish my dad had a chance to see me now, and meet my kids. So I'd put him there. Then I got my heroes behind me. So my 2 favorite heroes are Epictetus and Aurelius. So I definitely want those 2 guys there. My favorite teacher, my favorite leader. I've got Lincoln on a wall up here. I've got Abraham Lincoln. I've got Ralph Waldo Emerson up there as well. And then my future self, I would put into that list. And then again, if I can cheat and invite another dude, I'd invite the 10-year-old version of me, right? So then I got that little version of me that can look at me right now. I got the version of me in 10, 25 years that can inspire me with who I'm becoming. And those individuals, my family would be there. They'd get some bonus seats and we'd have a good time. And I should say, I hang out with them every morning. So every single morning in my meditation, I invite those individuals into my consciousness, and they give me wisdom every single morning. So I'm hanging out with them literally every day. That's not a hard thing for me to imagine, dude. They're like, it's like, Dumbledore at Hogwarts. He's got his former headmasters or whatever coming off the wall talking to him, dude. I got the same story with my heroes. They're alive in my mind, literally every morning.
I have to ask just a follow-up question to that. I have personally struggled with meditation over the past couple of years. I think I'm in a much better place now understanding it, but wanted to just get your 2 cents on what you just described, maybe for a listener that's struggling or looking to invite some of those heroes or maybe past family members. Do you have a quick
I do.
30 seconds you can share about what you do?
Yeah, it might be 90 seconds, but I've got a whole class called Meditation 101. So I've got 50 classes in the Heroic app. But one of them's Meditation 101. Now, you got to know why. You're not going to change your behavior unless you have a strong why. So you got to make the connection between the practice. Don't call it meditation. Call it strength training for your mind. So you need to train your body. Well, you need to train your mind. I mean, again, when you talk about peak performance in any domain, particularly sports, it's 90% mental. But then ask people, well, how much are you training your mind? And it's 0%. Literally, maybe they do a little bit of visualization, but it's insanely low. And as I go next level in my own life, I ask myself the same question. What's the one thing I need to start doing that I'm not doing right now that I did when I was at my best? It's meditate for an hour in the morning and an hour at night. So I just did an hour of meditation this morning, whereas I was doing 10, 15, 20, 30 minutes before. Next level. Very briefly, what I do, and again, the returns on meditation are instant. Meditating for 15 minutes in the morning will return itself tonight. You'll be able to fall asleep faster. You'll get more deep sleep. It literally, the ROI is instant. You got to do it for a couple of weeks, but it's instant. Anyway, I train my breath, which is an incredible way to flip the switch and maintain calm confidence. So I do that every single morning, and I have 5 steps to what I call heroic meditation. I train my breath, and then I do mantras for virtues, which is the back cover of the book. Wisdom, discipline, love, and courage are cardinal virtues of every tradition. And then gratitude, hope, curiosity, and zest are scientifically proven to change your life. I have declarations I say to myself. Then I invite my heroes to join me. Each one gives me one line of wisdom, right? And then I imagine my future. So I've got a 30-year mission tattooed to my body. So Heroic Public Benefit Corporation, I imagine where we're going to be in 25 years. Then I imagine where we're going to be in 6 years by 2030, by 2025, what I'm working on right now. And I do that. And then I silence, let it all absorb. And then what I need to do comes to mind. I know what the next thing is I have to do that morning, and then I do it. I can do that in 10 minutes or an hour. Those little 5 segments, I can make 12 minutes each, or I can make 1 minute each. But that's how I meditate every day. But it's not, I want to go to the Himalayas and levitate. It's no, I want to show up heroically. So I'm going to get myself centered. I'm going to get myself grounded. I'm going to train my breath and my mind. I'm going to focus it on what I'm going to do in my life and what I'm going to do today to live heroically. I've missed 1 day in the last 17 years. You couldn't pay me to not do that. You couldn't pay me to not eat, move, and sleep at the highest levels. But that's a long answer to your question, but that's how I approach it. But I think we need to reframe it. It's not, quote, meditation. It's mental training, It literally, it's strength training for your mind. It's a lot easier, I think, to adopt that practice than another.
And I love how you worded that, because I think where people, and especially men, miss with this meditation is, I think, that old school, sitting down with your hands crossed, like kumbaya type thing. But when you take it a step further, it doesn't matter what you call it. It doesn't matter if yours is 26 minutes and mine is 6 minutes. It's about not only the consistency, but more importantly, how it sets you up for that day, that afternoon, that evening. And I just love how you worded that. And I hope for our listeners, maybe that somebody is struggling with meditation or breath work or something like that. You just take in the idea of the impact it has on you, and try to figure out what works for you, because I think it goes right along with the idea of visualization and affirmations. I think a lot of people miss the boat when you say affirmations, because I know people think about, I don't know if you remember the old Saturday Night Live with Stuart Smalley.
Dude, it's one of the chapters in my book. They actually, Michael Jordan and him connected. Yeah. It was so funny, dude. Like, Google Michael Jordan and Stuart Smalley, whatever his name is. It's so funny. You know, I love myself. Yeah. Declarations is what I say. I declare that I'm going to do certain things that are in integrity with my life. I want to make an important point, though, that scientists say that being able to control your attention, they call it the spotlight of your attention, being able to put your mind and your focus where you want, when you want, for how long you want, is one of the hallmarks of happy, flourishing, successful people. You're training this the same way you said. You don't just show up and suddenly handle pressure in a big game. You better be training your ability to put your mind where you want, when you want, for how long you want, in mundane moments. So that's one of the reasons I do it. I know how to flip the switch and step in between a stimulus and a response. George Mumford was Phil Jackson's mindfulness coach for Jordan, for Kobe Bryant. He's a genius at this. You got to be able to stand in the center of the storm, and you got to know how to get to that center point in the midst of challenges. And this practice is one of the ways to do it. And again, it can't be a chore. It's got to be a gift. You got to be excited about it. It can't be something that you feel you have to do because someone said you have to do it. You got to get excited about your life, see the things that you could be doing that you're not doing, and make the connection that the reason you feel the way you feel, which isn't the way you want to feel, is because you're not making good choices. So control your mind, control your behavior, start doing the things and get excited about it. And then more joy comes in, more meaning, more energy, productivity, connection, etc. You're getting me fired up, Christopher. Let's go.
So I've said it before, but for our listeners, if you have not followed Brian, definitely follow Brian. If you have not purchased Brian's book, definitely buy a book for yourself and for somebody else. But wanted to give you an opportunity. What's the best way for our listeners to find out more about you? Also find out about your app as well, because I think you have just some unbelievable stuff that I know a bunch of our listeners will really enjoy.
Yeah, and then just to emphasize, you know, with you being as into the peak performance in the sports world as you are, and kind of leading that field, we have a lot of, I can't name all the teams that use Heroic, but you'd know them if I mentioned them. So there's resonance in the community, right, of peak performance in sports. But Areté is Arete. You can find it wherever you buy books. I always get a kick out of the fact that we're in FedEx. So, you know, whatever.
Really?
It's one of those things, you know, as Kinko's, FedEx. I'm like, yeah, I'd like to have a book in there one day. So anyway, we're there, whatever, Amazon, Barnes & Noble, Indies, etc. And then the Heroic app I've mentioned a couple times, you can find that at heroic.us on the web, or you can find that in your iOS and Android app stores. Just search Heroic. We're the training platform. Yeah, man, I appreciate you and all you're doing, and just really enjoyed our chat.
Brian, a fun question I ask everybody is, are there one or two people on social media that you follow that really put out really good content that maybe you would like to potentially introduce to our listeners as well?
It's really funny, dude. I don't do anything on social. So we're building our own social platform. Another big part of the Heroic platform is an alternative to Facebook, TikTok. That's my background. So that's what we're creating with Heroic. We do all the stuff we talked about, but it's really the social side. You know, we talked about two of my favorite people, Sean Casey, Brian Kane, and then Phil Stutz. If you don't know Phil Stutz yet, he's an international treasure. So watch the Netflix documentary if you feel inspired, with Jonah Hill, F-bomb dropping therapist. Jonah makes it funny, and kind of he's more of a coach than a therapist in general, and certainly for me. But Phil's an amazing human being. He wrote a book called The Tools You Might Enjoy. And his new book is called Lessons for Living, which comes out, not sure when we're releasing this, but right after Thanksgiving. Phil Stutz, hands down. He's amazing. And I think that anyone who looks him up will get a lot out of him and his work.
And then last question we have for you is the same question we ask everybody, is if you have any parting words you'd like to leave with our listeners today.
Just thank you, man. I appreciate you, the work you're doing. It's been an honor to connect with you, and hopefully we fulfilled our mission. One person, one idea, and hopefully that person is the listener who's listening right now. Just grateful to be connected, excited about what you're up to, and excited to connect offline and find ways to do some great work together.
I appreciate it, and I'll just thank you again for your time. And for our listeners, definitely grab a copy or two or three of Brian's new book, and make sure you follow him and some of the stuff he does. And I am on your heroic app myself, so for our listeners, definitely check that out. But I hope that you and I can connect again soon.
Thank you for listening to episode number 418. I really enjoy hosting the No Quit Living podcast, and when I get the opportunity to interview people like Brian Johnson, I feel incredibly lucky. He shared some unbelievable knowledge with us today, and hope you not only took notes, but will actually apply what stood out to you and go ahead and take action. Brian said something that really stood out to me near the end. He said, make your prior best your new baseline. As we conclude today's episode, I would like to echo that. The next time you accomplish or achieve something new, make that your new baseline. Challenge yourself to reset that baseline and continue to improve, stretch, and grow as you go for your greatness. And remember, we rise by lifting others up.
And lastly, to our listeners, thank you. We truly appreciate your time, and we hope our episodes inspire you to keep on attacking life and never giving up. To quote Dr. Norman Vincent Peale, it's always too early to quit.